Hey YouTube, this is Prince from Desi Programmer. Welcome back to another exciting video, and I won't say this is just a video, it's going to be a series where we'll be exploring Flutter and Firebase. A couple of you were having much problems with Firebase authentication, data storing and whatnot, so in these videos we are going to explore those fields and then we will create a giant application. Before we move forward, let's see what is Firebase. So I want to explain in much detail, but Firebase can act as a backend for your application. You can do authentications using Firebase. You can store your files, images using Firebase. You can also store normal data using Firebase, real-time database or Cloudflare storage. Now, first let's start how you can use it. You have to just go to firebase.google.com and then you have to just log in with your Google ID, and here you will come to this page that will be welcome to Firebase. Click on create a project and now you can create a project. So give your project some name. Let's say I want to give this a name of test. Let's click on next and now we get this text. I don't want Google Analytics for this, so I will just turn this off and let's click on create project. This will take some time in creating the project. Once your project is ready, click on the continue button and now you can see your project added right here. Now you have to choose an application to get started. You can choose iOS, Android, Web or Unity. I just want to click on Android and we will start an Android app. Now here it asks us to register an application, and since we don't have one, we have to create one application. So here in our VS Code, I'll just use Ctrl+Shift+P, then Flutter create new project. I'll name this as Firebase Starter, hit enter. I'll choose the directory and click, and this will create a project for me. Once your project is created, head to Android app and there you will see this build.gradle file in your app directory. Here if you come down you will see default config and there you will have an application ID. So normally when we are using simple applications it will be com.example.your application name. So I have to just copy this and here I have to just paste this. We don't need anything else. If you want you can give your app a nickname. I'll just give this a nickname of test. I don't want an SSL certificate. I will click on register app. This will register the application for me from the Firebase. Now click on download Google services.json, and from here onwards everything is important. Make sure that you do this all just the way as I am doing or else you will get some kind of error. So first of all we have to paste this google-services.json in our app directory. So you have this google-services.json, and remember that this should be exactly as google-services.json. If you have multiple files it may end up naming itself as google-services1 or 2. Make sure that you don't have that. And here in your application head to Android app and there simply just paste this right here. I'll just close both of them. Now let's move forward. Now you have to add couple of things in your Android directory. So first of all, just copy this particular line, which is class path com.google.gms:google services 4.3.3, and as it says we have to go to project/build.gradle file. That's our project level build.gradle file, not our app level. So in our Android, if we just go to here build.gradle file, you see we have a couple of things here. Now here in dependencies, just enter the line that we just copied. And also change this to 4.3.0 to avoid any errors that may appear. Then in this app level build.gradle, click on this single line that's apply plugin com.google.gms.google-services. Copy this line. Again go back to your project and now go to the app level build.gradle file, just the place where we copied our Google services google-services.json, and here at the end paste this line that will apply the plugin. Now let's save it and I think we are good to go. Now we need to use a couple of plugins, but before that let's just click on next, and now we have to go to the console and here we have our test application up and running. Here we have authentication. Firebase gives us a couple of options. We have authentication using which we have different sign-in methods. We can sign in using email, password, phone, Google, play games, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Microsoft account and anonymous. And then there are also these options that are actually very helpful. Then you have this database. You can use real-time database or cloud storage to store your data. It's a NoSQL database with a key value pair documents, just like the MongoDB. So we can click on this and create a database. In this video we are going to create a database and talk about CRUD application. Then there's storage. You can use storage to store your images, video files. We have hosting. Here we can host our web web applications. But in this series, we are going to talk about authentication, database, and storage. So in this video, we'll talk about database. In the next video, we'll talk about storage, and then we'll talk about authentication, and eventually we will create one application that will use all of them to see how this all works. So let's click on the database. Let's click on create database, and now I want to start this in test mode so that for next 30 days anyone can connect to this. That won't be an issue as of now. Let's click on next, and now it will ask me to choose a Firestore location. Use any location that's close or whatever you want. That won't be an issue. Next, click on next, and it will start creating a Cloud Firestore for us. So once this is done, you will see a console like this. Leave it as it is. Now let's go back to our project. In our pubspec.yaml file, we have to add this dependency, that's Flutter Cloud Firestore. This will have Firestore Cloud, and using this we can now use Cloud Firestore functions. So this video is going to be a very basic core functionality of Cloud Firestore. In this simple series, we will scratch the core functioning of this so that we can understand how they work, and then we will create a good application to scale them to an advanced level and use and to see how they work in interjection with each other. So let's just save them. Let's go to main.dot file. I'll just clear them. So here I have this my app that's simple, that returns a simple material application. Then here you can see we have the home page as a home, and here we don't return anything. I have to simply say I want to return a safe area, and now I'll just run the application. If we are able to run this without any error, then that means that our entire setup is completely successful. So our application is up and running. We don't have any error. These are just simple debug prints. And one more thing, if you had any error, just go back to your build or gradle file in your app. So go to Android, then go to app, and in the app go to build or gradle file and change the minimum SDK version to 21. And because it's normal by 16, but if you're using Cloud Firestore, you should change this to 21 to avoid any error that may appear. Now that we have this application up and running, let's build a simple UI where you can do our CRUD application. So we just have a simple nav bar, app bar that says task, and then there's this single text in between that says Flutter. Now to get a database instance, we have to say something like final db is equal to firestore dot instance. This will give us an instance of the database. Now here, let me tell you one thing. We are going to simply add a task, retrieve the task, update the task, and delete the task. But even inserting and retrieving advanced data is just the same thing. All that we have is to do a bit processing before inserting data and after retrieving the data. That too we will do soon. But here let's focus on the core basic. So we have a database instance named as db, which is Firebase firestore.instance. But here, if you go back to our Firebase, you see that we don't have any collection. So we don't even need to create any collection. Just as MongoDB, as soon as you insert your first data, a collection will be created. So if you want, you can create a collection, and if you don't want, you can leave it as it is. I will add a floating action button to our scaffold. That will be a floating action button. And here on the on pressed, I want to call this add button. That will just add some data. Actually, it should not be add. Let me call so dialog. We have a child, that should be an icon. Icons dot add. Let's save it, and here you can see we have this simple floating action button. So I have to code this so dialog. I will just copy this and I will code a dialog. So we have a very simple so dialog with a small d, which returns a so dialog with a capital D. That's a Flutter widget. We have the context. In the builder, we return an alert dialog with the text of add to do. There in the form, we have a simple text form field which has a label of task. And in the action, we have this raised button that obviously says add. So if I click on this button, I get this add to do. I can click on this add, and I can click here and enter our task via my keyboard. I have to add a couple of things here. First of all, in the text form field, I want the autofocus to be true. So autofocus true, so that as soon as I click on that, my keyboard appears. Then we need a form to be validated. For that, I want to add a global key. So we have a global key which will be of form state. I'll name this as form key So that too will be a global key of form state. Now when I have to copy this key, and in my form I have to say that the key is this particular key. I want auto validate to be true. Since the auto validate is set to true, we obviously need some kind of validation. I am just going to do some very basic validation. In the validator, I accept a value name with an underscore val, and I'm saying that if the underscore val dot is empty, then I want to return a string. Remember, the string that we return will be displayed as an error message. So I will simply say can't be empty, and in the else portion I'm saying return null. Okay, cool. Also I need to assign some value when this is changed. So I will have this value named as a string task. So the type is a string and the name is task, and I'm saying after the validator in the on changed that whenever the value is changed, come on, I insert an underscore val, and then I just set the value of task to be underscore val, and that's pretty much it. Now let's talk about inserting some data. Now if you have some complex data, we probably will create a class of the data. There will be an option to check all the constraints for the data. Then we may have a setter that will set it to a JSON, and then we will put it to database. Since we don't have to do that, we will focus on the core basics, like what's a snapshot, what will be a document a snapshot, how data is actually structured and inserted into database. So the insertion process is simple. It is inserted in a JSON format. You have a key, you have your value. Key will be the one using which you will insert data, retrieve data, and that will be a kind of constraint using which you can query your data. So I will keep the key simply as task. So when somebody clicks on this raise button on pressed, I have to add the data. How do I do that? So if, as you remember, I have created an instance in the DB, so I have to just say db.collection, and now we need to add the path. That's simply the name right now. Actually it is the path, but if you go here you will see that when you start a collection it will be in your root directory, right? And I don't want to start a collection. I will just enter right here that this collection's name is task. Then I have to say dot add. Here I have to add a task, and that will be a JSON. So I will set the key to task and the value. So the value will be one that we retrieve from the string named as task. And after adding, I have to just I have to just pop this. So I have to just say navigator dot pop, and now this will close this. So simply I'm just saying that in the DB collection, create a collection of task. If it's not present, then add this key as task and value as the one that we retrieve from this box. So let's click on this button, and I'm going to put this as task 1. Click on the add button, and you see just goes off. Now here, so as you can see here, we have this task named collection, and this document where we have a key of task and a value of task 1. So this is how we can insert data. Let's do this again. I'll just click on this button and I'll say record, that's a task. Let's click on add, and it's a real-time database. As soon as I add, you see we have this database reflected here. We have this data reflected here. Now let's move forward and let's talk about retrieving data. That's reading all the data. Now a good thing is that Flutter Firebase provides us a document snapshot, so we can create a stream builder. And what a stream builder does is that it keeps listening to the changes, and as soon as you make a change in your database, either through your application or from any place, it will load that for us. So to use that, here in my body, I want to remove this center widget, and I want to remove this text widget too, and I will say that I have this stream builder, and this stream builder will take a query snapshot. So I have this query snapshot, and now what this stream builder does is that here you can see we have a couple of things. We have a builder, we have a stream. So the stream is going to be db, that's our database, dot collection. I will name the collection name as the collection name is task. Then I have to say get the snapshots. That's it. Then we need the builder, and in the builder we will have obviously a context, and then our query snapshot. I'll just name this as a snapshot. Now there will be certain situations. All that I'm going to say is that if snapshot dot has data, that will be an issue, or that will be a situation. Else we are going to have another situation that will be snapshot dot has error. So if it has error, I'm just going to return circular progress indicator. And the snapshot has data, I'm just going to return a text that will say has data. Okay, have patience, we will return everything else. And here as an optional else statement, I'm just going to return circular progress indicator. I know it's not a good practice to return a circular progress indicator as an else statement, but let's see what do we get. So right here we have has data. Let's restart the application and let's see if we can see a circular progress indicator here or not. So I have restarted the application. Okay, I think the changes have been reflected already. Let's see again. Yeah, it is all there. We have the data. Now let's see how we can retrieve the data and we can work with that. So in the snapshot.hasData, we are simply returning text. Just remove this. I don't want to return a text. I want to return a list view.builder because we are going to get a list of data. So I'll say list view.builder. You have an item builder, obviously that's set to null. Now here we have to get all the snapshots. So here first of all we have this item count that will be snapshot dot data dot documents dot length. So we have the length of data. Then we have an item builder that will take context and then an index as per the length. And here in the context and index, I'm simply going to return a container so that I can style it later. Come on, container. And in the container as a child, I'll have a list tile. Okay, that's it. Let me save this and you can see we don't see anything much here. But if I in my list tile, if I set the title to a text and let's just put some static text, leave it as data, you see we get two values. What this indicates is that we have two documents. Now we have to get the value of each of the document. For that, in the item builder, we first get a specific document snapshot. So we say that we have a document snapshot. I will name this as ds and this is going to be snapshot dot data dot document of this particular index. So now we have a snapshot dot data dot documents of this particular index. Now this is a document at this index, so we have this document. Now all that we have to do is we have to use a key to retrieve the data. So in the task I can simply say something like, come on, ds with the key of task. Let's see if we can see the task or not. So pretty good, we have the task one and the record. Now let's talk about updating and deleting data. So we have created data, we have read the data. Now we have to delete the data and update the data. So in the text list tile of the title, I have one option named as long press, and then I have this another option named as on tap. So what am I going to do is that when somebody taps on the data, I'm going to update it. Okay, when somebody long presses this, I'm going to delete it. Now first let's handle the delete process. That's far simpler. So to delete, all that I have to say here is db dot collection, and here the collection's name is tasks dot documents and the document is right here ds dot, and we get a document ID by default, so we can use that. That's pretty simple. And delete. Yeah, so unlike SQL, we don't have to use an ID that will be auto increment and all. By default a document ID will be created, which will be more complex other than just 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we can simply use that document ID, and since we are working with a document snapshot, we get the document ID of that particular snapshot with whose data we are displaying, and then we will just delete it. And after deleting, okay, here's the interesting part. Okay, let's just refresh the application and let's see what you get. So we have refreshed it, and I have delete option. Let's just click on task 1, long press, and it gets deleted. So Since it's a stream listener, since it's a stream builder, it's listening to our document stream. I don't have to call set state here to update the state. As soon as we delete here, it gets reflected here in the database, and the stream notifies that there's been a change, and it deletes that from here too. So this is one very good thing about Firebase. You can, if to implement this functionality from your own core server, you will have to do a lot of effort, but with Flutter it becomes very easy. That's why Flutter is kind of a freemium based version. If you scale it, you will have to pay a lot more, but obviously beginning it will be free, so we can learn it. Now we have long press. On the on tab we need to update. Now let's see how simpler the update process is. Okay, all that we have to do in our update too is we have to call that's our database dot collection. The collection is tasks, and then with a dot I have to call the document. The document will be ds dot document id. Then I have to call update data, and here I have to update the data. So the key will be task for my data, and the value will be, let's say I'm simply putting a static value, new value, and press Z, and that's it. We have updated it. Let's see. When I just tap on this, okay, it goes away. Let's see why. Sorry, I just long pressed by mistake. Let me put some data. I will say task 01. Let's click on add. Let's tap it, and you will see it becomes new value, right? Because when I tap it, it updates the data, and the data is now new value. Actually, if you want to do something like you accept the data from there, we can do that too. All that we have to do is in our show dialog, I'm going to accept a boolean value that will be is update. So is this an update or normal ones? And after that I also need to accept a document snapshot, which will be a ds. Now all that I'm saying that here, normally when you call the show dialog, which obviously you can't call like this, so now it will be an arrow function, and then you call show dialog with the first one is update. So that will be false because I don't want to update it, and the second value will be null because I don't have any document snapshot to pass. And here where we just simply put a new value in the collection, all that I'm going to do is I'm going to call show dialog with is update. That will be true. The document snapshot will be ds. Let's save it. Let's go back to our show dialog function, and here we have in the on pressed, we are just simply adding the data. So I will actually cut this. Okay, come on, I'll just cut this from here. And now before doing that, we have to check one value, which is update. So if the value is update, that means we have to update it. In the else case, I will simply put this. I will also take this navigator.context out of this if else simple ladder. I will paste it here because in both the scenarios we have to pop it. So if this is an update, then okay, did I just delete everything? It's okay. So if it's update, all that I have to do again is I have to say ds dot db dot collection. The path will be tasks dot document. The document is ds dot document id and dot update data, and there we have the key, that is task, and the value that will be available from the task, and that's it. And here we simply add a data. So let's just save it. Let's click on this button. Let's click on this again, and you see we get this option which says add to do. Obviously I have to change this to, but anyway, if I say something like new to do, if I click on add, you see this gets changed to new to do. Ain't it amazing? Well, that's how it works. And here in the title, all that I have to do is I have to check if this is update. If is update is true, I will have a different text. If it's false, I will have a different text. So if the update is true, I will say copy this, paste it here, update to do. Let's save it. Now when I click on this, it says update to do. I'll just put some random value. Let's click on add, and we get this. Now let me show you one simple issue that appears right here. Let's start inserting some data, right? So did you see that? Let me tell you what happened. So I entered my task as eat, sleep, code, repeat, but we have sleep, code, repeat, eat. Now the reason why this happens is because the document by default sorts this either via their document ID or using the string. So we can't simply sort the string, because if we try to sort the string, it will be lexicographically. So we will first get code, eat, repeat, sleep. So to do that, we have to use our own sorting method. Now already I said we can't use something like ID, so there is one more thing that we can use, and that is time. So we have to use time so that we can sort according to the time. And the way how we do that is let me first delete all of them. And now after deleting all of them, here where I'm adding a task, I want to add another value that will be named as time in sort keys, and that will come from date time dot now. Okay, let's save it. I have to do the same in update too. So let me just copy this from here. And did I just miss something? Let me see. Okay, now it's okay. And I have to paste the same here too. Now let's just save it. Now let's click on add. And if we add a task first, let's say some random value, then I will say second second, and then I will say fourth. I hope the spelling is correct. Now if you see right now, even though it's not correct, we first have fourth, then second, then that random value. So all that we have to do is to actually sort that. So we have to order that, and we do that by ordering our stream. So in our stream, you see we have db.collection and then snapshots. So before the snapshots, I'm going to use dot order by, and we have to order by the field that's time, and then dot snapshots. Let's save it. Come on. Okay, so we have an error. Where it is? That's here. Let's save it. Now you can see we have first, second, and fourth. So obviously this is the order by which we entered our task. So now any task that I add will be at the bottom, obviously. Let's click on add, and it will be here at the bottom. Let's click on bottom, and it will be at the bottom. So this was a simple yet amazing task application. I won't just call this a task application. In this application, we did actually learn how we can connect to Firebase and how we can make sure that we do a CRUD application using the Cloud Firestore. In the next video, we'll probably talk about authentication, then we'll talk about storage, and eventually we will create some giant application using all of this. So yep, keep coding, keep learning, keep saying peace. And I have also linked my Patreon account in the description. So if you want to support, you can do that too.